This happened a few years back when I was still in junior high. I was 12 and living in the city with my parents. My mom was always out and stayed as far away from home as she could. When she was home, she was pretty much dead to the world. My stepdad, on the other hand, was always there. And when he was, let's just say, he was never sober. Not to say that he was violent, but he was real damn mean. Like he would cook hot dogs for dinner, and if I was late coming home, I would only have the buns to eat. I would call him a jerk, but that would be too kind. I am not kidding when I tell you I did not live a normal kid home life experience. I even tried to sneak a sip of his liquor to understand if that's why he was always mean to me. Nope. I got sick, and he was still a class, that jerk. I always fought and disagreed with my parents, wishing to escape their rules and live my life on my own terms. One day, as I'm walking home from school, taking my time going home, a kid about my age shadows me. He puts up his hand in a gesture I assume was a gang sign of some sort, but I shrug it off. He waves me over and I keep walking, and he follows me and cuts in front of me. "What's good?" the kid says. Before I answer, I catch from the corner of my eye other kids who are walking up and stopping just short behind me. I realize that the signal was not for me, it was to alert others to surround me. I was thinking the kids were about to jump me when the first kid looked around and nodded. "What's your handle?" the kid asked me. I paused for a moment, not wanting to talk. I knew something was up because the kid didn't move. "Today's your lucky day, Nico," the first kid said my name. When he saw my face change expressions, he kept on talking. "We have a spot for you. You should come with us." "No, thanks," I said. "I'm good." "You should come with us," another voice said behind me. It creeped me out that all of the other kids started to chant, "Come with us." I didn't understand, but as soon as they turned to walk, I was trapped in the middle. I was in lockstep with everyone. It felt like a prisoner being moved to the electric chair. My body was in a trance, but I was aware that I was going against my will. I wanted to run, but my legs kept walking. We hadn't gotten too far when we rushed into an abandoned building and down several flights of stairs. We were inside some industrial complex. It was dark, cold, and smelled like something had been using a place as a bathroom. The first kid grabbed my arm and walked me to the other side of the large room. There was a table and chair with a small table lamp. Behind the table was a man wearing an expensive black suit. His hands were very clean, and one of them stretched out to shake my hand. My brain screamed to stay away, but I saw my arm rise and shake the stranger's cold hands. The man sat down and looked at me from behind the shadows. "Michael." The strange man's voice was cold and very hard, like he was drinking alcohol all his life. "You promised me a fighter." The kid, Michael, looked at me and then at the man. "He's a fighter. He's got spirit." Michael looked at me again. If he was hoping that I'd stand up and agree, he was mistaken. I was just as stunned as he was. "I ask you to get strong fighters." The man stopped talking for a long while. He sat deeper in his chair, pointing at me. "You brought me a coward. He is not worthy. And you have failed me." Michael looked at me in a panic and then back at the man. "Hey kid," Michael said. "Hey Nico, tell father, you ain't a coward. Tell him now." Michael leaned forward and whispered in my ear. "Please." I could hear his voice shaking. I looked at the kid and then back to the man. I saw white teeth smiling from within the dark shadows that covered most of his pale face. The man exhaled slowly. "Emily." The man turned his head slightly. Next to his desk was a girl, a little older than me. Her face was as pale as the man, and her eyes were like pools of oil. It was like watching two round circles of coal staring at me. "Take Michael to the ready room," the man said. Michael looked at Emily, and in a blink of an eye, she was standing between me and Michael. She placed her hand on Michael's face and said, "Come with me." I watched in horror as Michael's face contorted from terrified to a calm, blank expression in a second. His eyes flickered, and I could see they were milky white with no color in the irises. Emily took Michael by the arm and walked around the table and out of sight. Michael didn't look back. All at once, I felt my body obey my brain again. My legs started to shake and my palm was sweaty. I had the urge to throw up and run all at the same time. I turned back to look at the man who was staring at me. He lifted his chin, and then he stared deep into my soul. When I looked around, All of the other children were gone, and it was only the man and me. Please understand, I only accept those who pledge allegiance willingly. I only use strong, talented people. The man looked at me like he wanted me to answer, but I could only think about what he was trying to tell me. I feel that you will come back to me. Willingly. When you do, I can offer you more than this. He waved his hands around in the air. I know why you're scared to join. The man was quiet for a long time. He pointed at me quickly and said something that froze me to the spot I was standing on. Your mother. The man in black stood up. He was at least 6 feet tall and extended his long arm over the heavy wooden desk. We will meet again. Dumbly, I took his hand again and followed his gaze to the back of the room. I dropped his hand and looked to see the steel stairs leading back to where I had come. I looked back to see if this was some dream. The man, the desk, and light that shined to cover his face were gone. There wasn't even a puff of smoke to indicate a magic trick was done. I heard a mild scratching sound, with pattering of feet in the distance, then another, then a squeak, and I put 2 and 2 together. I was afraid that there were rats coming to see if there were any tasty people to eat. That was my cue to leave. As I got to the second landing of the stairs, I looked down to see if there were any people left. I saw a shadow of a man in a suit. Around him were at least 30 rats surrounding him and sniffing the air, while standing on their hind legs. By the time I got home, it was pretty late. For a change, I wasn't too angry with my stepdad, but my mother had come home early, and I was glad to see her. I walked up to her and gave her a hug. I don't know what came over me, but she also stood shocked. After a few seconds, she hugged me back. I didn't want her to see me cry, so I went into the bathroom. I heard a loud knock on the front door. After another moment, the knocking started again. My mom got up and went to the door. From the bathroom, I could hear a kid's voice talking to my mom. We're lost, the voice said. We need to use your phone. Please let us in, another voice said. We're cold. It took me a few minutes to slip out the bathroom window and sneak around to the side of the house. When I got in a comfortable spot, in the alleyway in the darkness of the shadows, I spied on the people at my door. I could see my mother, with the screen door closed and with a sour look on her face. She was trying to reason with the 2 kids that were standing in front of her. Standing on the sidewalk, observing everything was Emily. I heard my mother ask them about their parents and where they live, but the kids kept repeating the same phrases like parrots. Suddenly, Emily looked up and saw me in the shadows. She peered into my soul, just as the man they called father had done an hour ago. Emily raised her hand, made a sign, and turned. As she had walked away, the kids on the porch had immediately stopped talking, turned on their heels, and left. From behind parked cars and trash cans, kids stood up and walked down the street. After about 30 seconds, I didn't see anyone else except my mom standing at the door. I counted at least 10 kids leaving. Over the next week, there were anonymous phone calls now and then. Then one night, I heard a loud banging on my front door. When someone would go to check, there would be no one there. My parents said it was an old joke called Ding Dong Dash, but I believe it was a message to me. And the message was, we're watching you, always watching you. I believe they are still watching me.